Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and today I wanted to share with you guys some pretty big news regarding not just Legion, but patch 7.1. Now today, well, I guess for you guys yesterday at Gamescom, Blizzard revealed some of their plans for not only Legion's release, but also for their first major content patch of Legion, patch 7.1, Return to Karazhan. So obviously you guys know what this is going to be about. Now, back whenever Legion was going into beta, somewhere around then, Blizzard threw out the idea of having a mega dungeon in their first major content patch of Legion, which would obviously be patch 7.1, very akin to, at least in my mind, maybe Maraudon or BRD, where there are multiple different difficulties of bosses. It's very expansive. It's much more like a raid designed for 5 players. At that point, nobody really knew what it was going to be, and my best guess what it was going to be Karazhan Crypts, and I was actually halfway right, because Karazhan is coming back in patch 7.1 as a 9-boss mega dungeon. So I'm pretty fucking excited about this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people are too. So one thing I do want to say right now before I forget is that the old Karazhan is not going away. It's not like you gotta go do chess event on all your characters to get the King's Defender, okay? You don't need to worry about that. That's gonna be staying in the game so you can farm that transmog until the servers shut down, probably. So don't really worry about that too much, but they are gonna be adding this in patch 7.1. Also, the new Karazhan is going to be having multiple different entrances, the same way as the old Karazhan did, where you could skip all the way up to Curator, and so that's also very, very exciting. And so they have, they brought with it a trailer, right? And so for the people that, you know, there's a lot of people who maybe didn't play back then, and so they see like a scared guy around in a spooky area, and, you know, they're talking about being a curator, and so the viewer is thinking like, oh, it's the guy in here, right? But anybody that did Karazhan, they know who the curator is. So whenever it pans around and up in the rafters, you see fucking Moros up there, and he pops down out of nowhere and stabs the dude, you know shit's about to get real. So I was really, really glad to see him come back. And then, of course, Moros is kind of a dick, right? Because he put that bleed on you. And so then he turns around and he lets all the Legion into Karazhan, which is obviously, that's the problem. That's why we got to go back in there. Because, you know, expansion's called Legion. So anyway, pretty much I think the way this is going to fit into this is that obviously Karazhan is the home of Medivh, who's the last guardian of Tristfall, who Khadgar is Medivh's apprentice. Khadgar basically killed Medivh. I don't really know where Medivh stands in terms of being alive or being dead, with the help of Lothar and I think somebody else during the First War, which would be taking place around the first Warcraft, and also what the Warcraft movie was basically built around. Now, the reason I think this is going to be happening is because Medivh's mother, Egwene, who is also the Guardian of Tristfall, she banished an avatar of Sargeras, and whenever she banished that avatar of Sargeras, the avatar of Sargeras in turn corrupted her womb, which would obviously be corrupting Medivh, and that allowed Sargeras to control Medivh and convince him, or control his mind and get him to open the dark portal into Azeroth that let the Horde come into Azeroth in the First War, and that was what happened in, again, the Warcraft movie. So this is obviously, there are a lot of ties to the Burning Legion, to Sargeras, and to a lot of other things as well. Many of the artifact quest lines lead you back to Karazhan or into the Karazhan Crypts, and then also we have the Harbinger story about Khadgar going back to Karazhan and almost being deceived by Medivh in the form, or a Dreadlord in the form of Medivh. So, you know, I think that's pretty much what it's going to be. I think there's going to be some really good tie-ins there. It's definitely very interesting to me to see how things are going to turn out. So I thought the trailer was really cool. Pretty much everything in this is going to be great, I think. And also, they're not just releasing this mega dungeon, they're also coming out with a new raid, and this raid is going to be accompanying. It's not going to be, probably not going to be replacing the old raids at that time. The old raids in Legion, there are going to be 2 raids whenever Legion comes out. There's going to be the Emerald Nightmare and then the Nighthold, and this third raid is going to be a smaller raid. Now, the place that I think this third raid is going to take is going to be very similar to the place that the ZG and ZA revamped dungeons took in patch 4.1 in Cataclysm. In patch 4.1 and right before then, it was very, very hard to actually make the transition into the raids in Cataclysm. The blue gear, and just, I might be wrong here, but I'm probably not. The blue gear in the Heroic dungeons for Cataclysm was 346, and the Heroic, no, not the Heroic, the normal mode raid gear in the Cataclysm dungeons, like BW, what would it be? Shit, what were the dungeons then? It was Throne of the Four Winds, Bastion of Twilight, and Blackwing Descent. Those 3 dungeons. The normal mode, or raids actually, the normal mode versions of that gear was 359. So there's a pretty big gap there, and the ZG and ZA dungeons kind of closed that gap by giving gear that was 353. And so I think that this new raid will kind of bridge that gap in the same way and make it just a little bit easier for people to take that step into the actual raiding content and maybe get some better gear. I think that's going to be a really, really good thing, and obviously I'm really, really looking forward to that. On top of that, they're obviously going to be adding more outdoor content for people who aren't necessarily group content oriented. That's going to be great too. And on top of like all of this, I think there's something to be said for the fact that Blizzard is not only just planning. I mean, like, did we ever hear anything about patch 6.1 whenever WoD was in beta? No. And so that's obviously really, really reassuring. And obviously they've said, and they said that we're not going to have any more content drops anymore. They said that in ICC, they said it in Dragon Soul, they said it in Siege of Orgrimmar, and now they're saying again in Hellfire Citadel. Is that going to happen this time? Well, maybe. I mean, hopefully. We'll see. I mean, I don't remember back in 6.1 or back in whatever WoD was in beta, or whenever, Mists of Pandaria was in beta. I don't really remember them talking about what they were going to do for the first content patch then. So it's really good to see them planning ahead, and I do think that to a certain extent they have kind of learned from their mistakes. Very, very rarely do we see companies that are very large like Blizzard actually going around and freely admitting to mistakes and being apologetic for the way that things were received by their customers and by their player base. And so for how apologetic it seems that they are about Warlords of Draenor, and also to a lesser extent about Mists of Pandaria, especially the content patch at the end of it, it makes me think that if they're going to do something, it's probably going to be now. Now, also, they're going to be talking about doing, I guess, raid tiers more quickly. They're saying that raid tiers are probably going to be between every 4 and 5 months, which is great because that's less than every 14, right? So obviously, I think everybody would be glad to see that. If it was every 4 months, we could have gone through an entire expansion in the time that we had Hellfire Citadel. So they're basically just trying to focus on trying to make sure that you don't run out of shit to do, which is obviously great because that means that I'm not going to run out of videos to do because I can keep showing you guys new shit. Sometimes it feels like, whenever I'm doing my garrisons or I'm just farming HFC for the millionth time, what am I really going to do a video about? Like, all the content's already talked about. It's done, right? But whenever they keep putting out new content, that's new content for me too. So I'm very glad about that. So anyway, guys, to wrap this up, just as a like a summary. Karazhan comes back in 7.1, 9 new bosses in this dungeon, multiple entrances to the dungeon. Obviously, it's going to be Karazhan, and also they're coming out with a smaller raid that's going to tie up some of the storylines, and also some outdoor content that will tie into the Storimar storylines as well. So very, very exciting. I'm really, really glad to see them looking ahead this far, and I just really hope that they can deliver on everything that people hope for. Okay, I think that WoD, a lot of people really expected that to be kind of a return to form for a while. I'm pretty sure that kind of is everybody knows that now, and it didn't really happen, and so hopefully it happens with Legion. Will it? I don't know, right? I think that there's always something to be said for having some healthy degree of skepticism, but we can all hope, right? And so I certainly hope it turns out well, and of course I'll be letting you guys know every step of the way. So thank you guys for watching, and like, comment, and subscribe.